Hello there, you're here with me, Peter Nixon, and I just want to tell you a little story about these two spinnings here. Now this one on the left here is about 1/8 of an inch higher than the one on the right. And the one on the right has a slightly larger diameter. You can see it fits on there, it's about perhaps 1 or 2 mils bigger. Now, after Jack Abbott Jr. died, his tools and equipment and parts were bought by a chap whose name escapes me just now, who lived in the West Midlands. And he later sold them on to a guy called Chris Metcalf, who was a member of the George Formby Society. Now, Chris Metcalf was tragically killed in a road accident with his wife about perhaps 3 or more years ago now. And his tools and equipment which he'd got were then sold to John Bullivant of the George Formby Society. However, I was quite friendly with Chris Metcalf, and we always used to chat at every convention. He came from Crewe, I think, and he used to come down on a Sunday. I bought this spinning from him. He told me that he'd got some of Abbott's stuff, and he claimed that this spinning was one of the spinnings that had been made by Jack Abbott Jr. and had never been used. Now, when I bought it, it didn't have these cutouts in it. Obviously, Jack Abbott Jr. didn't really do this sort of design anyway. I had these put in later on when I had my own spinnings made. Now, what Chris Metcalf said to me was that the brass that was used in Abbott's spinnings was different from the brass used in most modern reproductions of Abbott's. I suppose back in the days, not that I really know if I'm honest, but back in the days when Abbott Jr. and his father were making these, perhaps the way that they made brass was not quite as scientific as it is now. These days they have different standards of brass, so the brass used to make this spinning is probably the most common of the brasses. It's just sort of a standard machining brass, and it's classified as, I believe, CZ121. The formula for this spinning at the time, Chris Metcalf was sort of reluctant to tell me what he thought that it was. Now, I have since found out what I think that it is, but I'm not going to mention it in this video for now. I'll perhaps save that for a future occasion. But I'm just going to demonstrate something now which I thought you may find interesting. As I say, these are not exactly the same dimensions, which will make a difference, but they are roughly the same. But I do think there's perhaps something in it. I mean, as I say, the brass used for this spinning is pretty much the same brass that you'll find in most of the modern Abbott reproductions that have been made. But if I just take this one first, I've made a little jig here. If I just place that onto there and get my little dinger, swap over. So I'll just give it a little ring. Okay. Now we'll try it with the so-called Abbott Jr. spinning. Okay. So as you can see, there's actually a noticeable difference in tone between the two. So it just goes to show that not all brass is made equal. And I appreciate that the test I've just done is far from scientific. I might have been hitting one slightly harder than the other. As I say, they're not exactly the same dimensions, so there's all these factors to weigh into. But this older spinning certainly rings differently to this one, and arguably has a more sort of bell-like tone to it, and might be one of the reasons why some of these older instruments sound as good as they do. So I have it in mind that for my next batch of spinnings, whenever I get them made up, I am going to have them made using a formulation of brass, which I believe to be more similar to this one. So there you go. I hope you found that interesting. Just a little bit to think about the construction of banjos and the parts and all of these things. They do make a difference to the tone, for better or for worse. Have a nice day. Goodbye now.